weapons. So with a click of a button, you can change from being a ranged damage dealer to a melee tank-like character. And now they're ready to fight this boss. However, we're not showing that today.
Oh, you
fade to black as well. I'm gonna hand it over to Mr. Barlos to talk about
filthy stuff. Filthy stuff. Alright, I'm back. Back to talk about the filth. Alright, so the player's been investigating for, I don't know, 40-ish hours at this point, 45, 50 hours of the game they've been playing at this point. And we're going to jump back into the game. The player is in an area called the Blue Mountain, which is on Solomon Island, and they've stumbled across this abandoned CDC camp. Now the CDC were in the area investigating the filth that we talked about earlier. So we're going to have a look in the camp and see what the CDC guys have turned up about the filth as we run through. And we'll talk about a few supporting mechanics that the game has as we go. This is Mariana Chen. She's the only survivor in the CDC camp, and we're going to hear what she has to say about the filth now.
Hey, halt! No closer. I'm getting some weird readings. You might be infected. Everyone here might be infected. I'm with the CDC. I represent the government, so you have to listen to me. This is a quarantined area, and I have authority here. That's why I'm wearing the suit. That's what the suit means. It means the fecal matter has hit the fan, and we're staring phase 7 dead in the eye. Frankly, if it didn't violate protocol, I could really use a hug. I feel very vulnerable, especially after the others were exposed. Terminally. They expired. Died. They died. Horribly. Cursing, screaming, gasping, vomiting, clawing their own eyes out. It was icky. And then, when it's finally over and they're all dead, you think, hey, that sucked, but it's done. They're gone. We can deal with that. But oh no. Rising from the dead, shambling ghouls, glowing eyes, tentacles, black slime. Not even your standard government-grade Category Z reanimated corpses. This is brand new terrifying. Run for the hills terrifying. Despite all that training, you just want to skedaddle. It started down in that bog, just before the fog came. We'd been shipped in to support the Irachi group, not the other way around. I thought with a Democrat in office we were past these kinds of dodgy arrangements. But I guess absolute power corrupts regardless. And absolutely. Just like this Category A agent, the filth. It corrupts absolutely. Body and soul. Yeah, the filth. That's what they call it, for real. How the hell do you work with a name like that, the filth? You're just asking for it. So if I were you, I'd keep my distance. Safety first.
Alright, so a very important point to make about our mission givers and the way that they talk to the player is that often they'll just give the player a story. And the player, like she just said, stay away from the filth. But the player will actually ignore this in their quest because they're trying to put together this jigsaw puzzle, which is the story in our game. So often the mission givers aren't just people demanding help, they're actually people warning you away from something or telling you to back off or telling you to stay out of something that's clearly not your business. But of course, as a player, you're curious and nosy and you'll get involved anyway. So we're going to show you a couple of systems now. We're going to hack into the laptop here. Now, we have a computer interface system in our game, which we call the Ghost. The player gets the Ghost program at the start. Basically, it allows them to interface with any computer in the game and converts it to a Linux style interface where the player can easily choose commands or type in their own command line stuff. So we're going to jump into the field team document now. So we find out about who the field team were. Mariana Chen's on the list as well and all the other people who are in the area. In addition to that, Ghost downloads a HTML version from the website of the CDC. So we can close this, and if we go into the mission journal for the character now, we can click on the show image and actually view the HTML that Ghost downloaded for the player, so we can actually see sort of more the context of the information. Alright, so I'm going to close that now. We're going to head down into the bog to find out more about the filth and what's been going on there. So we're going to search for the CDC members that we just found out about by hacking that computer. So as you go down here, you'll see the effect that the filth has had on the creatures in the area. These were mostly former humans. Some of them were wildlife before, and they've all of them have been converted into these sort of insane raving madmen, but they still retain their skills. They will use shotguns, pistols, swords. They'll use whatever weapon they have to hand to attack the player. Off in the background there you see a Shade Stalker. Shade Stalkers are things that have taken the mutation further than most creatures in the game. When these creatures die, they explode, they leave behind an area of filth, so a player has to be very careful where they're standing while in combat. These guys will pull the player into the filth swamps with them, so it's about avoiding, using the dynamic nature of combat to stay away from these hazard areas, as well as taking down the enemies as quickly as possible before they pull you into situations that you can't handle. Alright, so we just received an achievement. We're going to jump into the achievement UI and have a look. So we have tons of categories of achievements in our game. Achievement systems have become fairly standard. We're actually sort of upping the ante. We give out rewards, item rewards, XP, things like that, by finding achievements. In addition to that, the achievements are really for people who pay attention to the story. I'm not going to give you too many specific examples, but things that people mention in the cutscenes, then you can go and do those things and you'll receive an achievement for it and a reward for it. So there's a lot of stuff that people who pay attention will get out of doing this. It's all part of the jigsaw puzzle. So we have the exploration category, missions, PvP, regional, and so forth. Sunden's faction. We have tons of stuff under the achievement category. Alright, but talking about the story jigsaw puzzle, now we're moving forward and we've actually found one of the members of the CDC. This is Mavis Anderson. We're getting ability points as we play through this. But we'll take down Mavis Anderson. She's one of the former CDC members. So we'll take care of her. And hopefully nearby we'll find some of the research that's been done into the film, find some of the details. Right. So this glowing filth pustule, when we click on that, we actually gain what's called a lore piece. Now, the lore system in our game is somewhat different to those you've experienced in other games. Yes, it's about finding these important things and unlocking them, but the way that it's written, and we have of course a ton of category of lore, the way that it's written is as a narrative. This is a story being told to you by a mysterious narrator, right? It's not an encyclopedia entry about the world. This is not what the purpose of our lore is. This is for filling in the cracks in the jigsaw puzzle and solidifying it into a picture for players. So, as you read this, you'll find that it's much more of a sort of storyline, and we want players to really be inspired to unlock the entire story, because then they will understand a lot more about what's going on in the world. So it's a collection mechanic, it's a supporting system, and it will sort of enlarge in the world for players who really want to dig into it. Alright, so I think we're going to jump to another supporting system now and head to Transylvania for the first time, which Ragnar will tell you guys a little about.
Sure. So Transylvania is one region we haven't really shown anything of at all so far. We're going to start in the very beginning of Transylvania, in this burned out Soviet era town. And this place is under siege by the Vampire Crusade. So in Transylvania, obviously you are fighting vampires, but these aren't your standard vampires. These guys come in lots of different varieties. The first ones you'll encounter are basic vampires, your normal everyday vampires who learn to actually dress properly so that the sun doesn't penetrate their clothing, so that they can stay out during the daytime. Later on you will be fighting blood vampires, more purebred vampires, and you'll also be encountering vampires that are the results of a Stalin-era Soviet experiment by an organization called the Red Hand. You'll descend into their labs in order to discover how these creatures were made. And of course it's all tied together with the storyline, the overarching storyline, and you'll find out that the Vampire Crusade that's happening, these vampires are basically trying to penetrate your protections here and move into Europe in general. That's a ruse, it's a cover-up for something much, much bigger and more dangerous. But for now, we're going to be fighting some vampires and showing off crafting, what we call transcribing. So we'll take the zip line down and Martin will take over.
Yeah, so because of the nature of our ability system, where the players can have thousands and thousands and thousands of combinations of abilities, it's really important to have the gear to complement your abilities. If you're playing around as a healer hybrid, you want some items that gives you increased healing. If your build revolves around critical striking, then you want critical strike chance on your gear. So we made this crafting system to really support the players in this by playing the game this way. It's called transcribing, and it's basically breaking down items, learning different shapes and how the items are constructed, then changing the items and reconstructing them with the type of stats that you want. So the guy that we're following here is playing with a hammer, and we just looted a hammer. It's not a particularly good hammer. It only has weapon power. It doesn't have any stats because this build is focusing on critical strikes and penetrating strikes. We want that to happen. So we want those stats on our hammer. So we're going to loot that hammer now and see how we can get those stats onto this weapon. We're going to start by deconstructing, disassemble the item. And when we do that, we get the materials. And as you see, they're laid out in the shape of a hammer. And this is how actually you create items as well, by learning different shapes. The shape of in this grid defines the item type. The materials define what sort of stat goes on that item. But as I said, we wanted to upgrade this item. So we're going to take the metal that we got, put it in the stack, and refine it and get pure metal, which is a better type of metal. Luckily enough, we have some other pure metals that we've looted from before, and we're going to put them back in the shape of a hammer, because we're creating a hammer. We're also going to add a weapon assembly kit that would actually raise the quality level of the hammer. And when we assemble this, it will actually create a rare hammer. See, it's blue, it means it's rare, and the increased weapon power. So now we've made a stronger hammer. But we still don't have the critical chance and the penetrating rating on the item yet. So all items in our game consist of a prefix, a core, and a suffix. And the player can create these different types of items and combine them in any way that they want. So right now, we're creating a prefix item. We're adding the material that gives the increased crit rating, and we're adding the material that adds penetration rating. We're combining those with the weapon prefix assembly kit, and we get the glyph of ferocity. This is a prefix item. So when we combine this prefix item with the previous hammer that we made, just put them both in the box, assemble them, and we get a fierce hammer, and it has crit rating and penetration rating. And this is, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's really important to have a crafting system which is accessible and really enables players to make the gear that complements their abilities. So now we can equip our new hammer and fight one of the bosses up here on top. And we really think that the crafting system can support the economy in a really, really nice way. It's super important to have a healthy economy in an MMO. And players are free to create these items, trade them, sell them. They can create just a part of the item. They can combine and make unique weapons and sell those. So we really think this can be a really nice way for players to interact and create a healthy economy. We're going to travel now from Transylvania to one of our dungeons.
That's right, and the dungeon we're going to be looking at now is called the Darkness War. Stephen, one of our members of our great dungeon team, is going to talk about that dungeon.
Yeah.
So I'll let you just do the talking.
Hey guys. So we've talked a little bit in the past about how you're getting to do a little bit of time travel in the secret world, and we've never really come forth with how that's going to happen, but we're ready to talk about it. This is Darkness War, which is a vision of the past. You are working with the Wabanaki in New England, and one of their leaders has presented a problem to you that he wants you to take a look at, and sends you into a trance to go into the past and look at an important period of history in New England. And what's been happening is that the New England coast has been invaded by a group of Mayans. And I could talk a lot about what happens in this dungeon, but I'm just going to let old Joseph speak for himself.
The Norsemen came then upon our shores in longboats, and they brought with them a powerful sword. Together, the Wabanaki and the Vikings were to build a shield around this island that would keep it safe from our enemies, from those who wish to dig into the mountain and unleash the serpent.
So the summary of what's happening here is that the Mayans have invaded, and they're pushing for a place that's powerful for them. But the Vikings have come and joined forces with the Wabanaki in the area and are helping push back the Mayans. Now I'm going to skip forwards in the dungeon a little bit to the very end here. show you one of the final fights in the dungeon.